Welcome to Tutors Travels. Let's talk about dating in the Philippines. Hey, what's up, guys? It's me, Will, again. Hey, today we want to sit back and we want to talk about dating in the Philippines. I know that several of you are like, hey, I want to come out there and check it out. It's cheap, the weather's nice, and the women, right? So let's talk about that. As foreigners and as U.S. citizens, we want to give you some of the information that we have ran across and that we know about, and we want to pass it on to you to make sure that it's something you're actually going to be interested in and that you understand some of the cultural differences and some of the traditions, because that's very, very important here.
Sure, I think I guess we could start talking about some of the pitfalls to begin with, some of the things that are what they call red flags or things that you want to be aware of when you're talking to somebody, whether you're talking to somebody online or somebody that you just recently met and shared a Facebook or WhatsApp number with. Of course, you want to make sure that you have Facebook, and the WhatsApp app is super common here in the Philippines for chatting people.
Yeah.
The internet is not as stable as it is in the U.S., so if you're talking to somebody from the province and stuff, it can be very inconsistent in their signal. So first thing I want to point out is there's no one set all perfect way when you're talking about dating. I mean, dating in California is different than dating in Miami. That's different than dating in New York City.
Indiana.
So you certainly have different variations of what two different individuals are looking for.
Yeah.
I can give a couple of examples of the different mistakes that I've made over time, like, oh, I'm coming to the Philippines for 3 or 4 weeks. I hope I can get out and see some of the beaches, see some of the islands, have some fun while I'm here. Well, that sounds okay in the US. Oh, we want to travel around, we want to have fun. But as soon as you use the word fun, what that culture means here is, oh, you're not serious about a relationship. You're just looking for somebody to go play with and travel with for 2 weeks and get rid of.
Yeah, I ran into that.
Yeah.
Hey, you want to go out for dinner and maybe go watch a movie, have a little fun? You're not serious? Is exactly the reply I got. I'm like, I didn't know how to take it because I didn't know what fun meant here, but fun has definitely got a different meaning here than it does in the States. Like in the States, we're going to go have a good time, have fun. Here, it's a little bit more intimate.
Another thing to be cautious or just aware of here is people that are working typically work 5 or 6 days a week. So it's very difficult for them to be able to travel, to be able to have time off. If they get a 6-month work contract, they're typically not even entitled to 1 week of vacation in 6 months. So for them to be able to jump on a boat and go to one of the local islands that's for 3 or 4 days, so you guys can spend time getting to know each other and travel around, get away from the city, is very difficult for somebody who has a full-time job.
Yeah.
The contract jobs here, either 6 months or 1 year, are pretty stringent to the amount of time off they're permitted.
Yeah, one thing I want to touch base about too out here was I know I have some friends that are talking about coming to this area, wanting to visit or wanting to come out and possibly live. And they're wanting to start the online dating process now. And I don't necessarily think, for myself, my opinion, I don't necessarily think that's the greatest idea. And there's multiple reasons. I'll let Will say what he thinks, but I don't think it's a great idea. I think it's better just to come out here and meet. Or if you feel like that you have a hard time meeting someone face to face, literally you can get online here and within 24, 48 hours have a date.
Yeah, there's certainly the availability of people dating right away once you get here. There is something to be said, though, if you have a little bit of time, you're thinking about 3 months from now or 6 months from now, checking out some of the bigger dating sites, Date in Asia, Pinya Love, Filipina Cupid, some of these. And I just tell you, read some of the other profiles. You know, it kind of sounds weird to go onto other guys' profiles and read them, but you know, think about what you're trying to communicate. Hey, I'm coming for the first time. I don't understand the culture. I want to get to know some friends. I want to be able to have people that I know or can chat with. You know, certainly if you're upfront and honest about those things on your dating profile, you can certainly be up to that. And certainly you'll see people on the dating websites. You know, of course, it's just like Tinder. If you're looking for, well, let's go out tonight,
Have fun.
you know, yeah, that's very different than somebody that says, you know, I'm only interested in a long-term relationship, or I'm only interested in dating that leads to marriage. Um, Another cultural thing to understand here is that it's predominantly Catholic influence in the country and in the culture, you know, and I'm not trying to say that's good or bad. I'm just saying you should at least be aware of what that influence has in the mentality of how people date and function and the purpose of dating.
I think too, one thing that I found out too is, and I think you might have even told me this a couple times. I think it was you who's told me. It's either you that told me or Rocco, but once you get here, make sure you take pictures of yourself in in an area that's well known in the Philippines. What happens is when you're back home stateside and you're talking, you're going to get a lot of girls that are interested, but once they find out you're not in country, it's going to kind of fall off because they tend to think that you're just going to come here, or you might not ever come here, but
Yeah,
they definitely want to know that you're here.
even more than that, they don't want to spend 2 or 3 months chatting somebody who's not going to actually show up in the Philippines or change their mind and end up in Thailand or something like that too. You know, again, it's just about being authentic to what you're putting on your profile. And like you said, it's a great thing if you're going to update your profile. You can change your setting to you're here in Cebu or whatever city that you're in, and find some of the popular things, the local mall, the local, you know, we went down to the Galleria and they have the big rose guitar and stuff. And if you post that in your background, then it instantly gives you credibility that you're actually here on site and they're not talking to
And it's
somebody
dated.
that's just wasting time.
Yeah, and they change a lot of like the when we went to the Galleria, the big guitar he's talking about is made of flowers.
Hmm.
So it's dated, right? So they know, oh, that was recent because they just did that. So those are some things, some ideas too, like taking pictures of yourself in the Philippines around, you know, Christmas decor. They know that, well, he's been here since at least September. So those are some ideas for you too.
So,
Another thing, let's get into this because this is a big one, especially for Americans. They're not used to this culture, at least a lot of them. On the dating websites, don't just swipe right on everyone. Read the profiles because there's a lot of women out here that aren't women. If you guys understand, there's a lot of ladyboys out here that look very authentic, and they've spent a lot of time and a lot of money to do that. The majority of them will be upfront with you about it, but there's still cases where they're not going to be upfront with you about it. So ask questions. Are you born female? So on and so forth. Most of the time, you're going to get an authentic answer from them.
and it's just like in the U.S. when they avoid an answer, it's giving you a ton of information, uh,
Yeah.
you know. And I would say too, once you have a little bit of connection with somebody or individually talking directly with somebody rather than just, you know, profile snapping, then you want to do a video call. Everyone here in the Philippines has a cell phone, has a, you know, WhatsApp has a video call, Facebook Messenger has a video call. And that way you can, you know, feel comfortable that you're authentically talking to the person in the picture. You know, a lot of it's similar in San Diego, where I come from in California. It might be a picture that's 5 or 10 years old on their dating profile. And you just want to represent yourself appropriately, but also, you know, double check who you're talking to.
Yeah, they want to talk to you on a video just as much as you want to make sure they're authentic. They want to make sure you're authentic because, I mean, there's not to bash foreigners in the Philippines, but there's some foreigners out here with malicious intent. Sometimes, you know, they come out here to only put notches on their belt and then go back home. So
and unfortunately, on the dating sites, you have scammers too that are just
yeah,
there talking to a bunch of people that are asking, "Oh, can I get $10 for food? I don't have this. My
medicine.
parents need medicine." And
Mhm.
just remember,
My electric's off. We hear that. I hear that one a lot.
what you feel comfortable talking about and how much money you're going to spend or not spend to somebody you've never met. It
Hmm.
can be a real thing. Like if they're not working, they may not be able to afford internet. And okay, they ask you for, $5 a month to have access for the internet so they can chat you. That may or may not be appropriate for you, but you'll have some. I had one that told me she was afraid to go home because she had like 40,000 pesos in her pocket to go pay for college, and somebody stole it from her, and her stepdad's going to beat her up. And would I send her 40,000 pesos on like the second day I ever talked to her on a dating site? And,
Yeah,
just
40,000 pesos
use
is a
some
lot.
common sense.
It's a lot of money to them out here. 40,000. Another thing that I think we might want to touch up on too. We just talked about scams and scammers and so on and so forth. And saying that, definitely, I would stay away from bragging about your finances or telling anyone here how much you bring home a month, a week, an hour, because it can set you up for some not so great things. Because I don't want to say a lot of the time because that's not true, but there are when you're on dating sites that sometimes you're going to run into women that aren't single, and that's how they're supporting their family. We talked about it, but they might have a Filipino boyfriend and he's completely okay with her chatting with foreigners, or when a foreigner comes to Philippines meeting for a date and then getting as much money as she can. It happens. But like Will was saying earlier, is um, they don't make a whole lot of money out here, and if whatever they can do to survive, to support their family, you can't really knock them for survival.
Yeah, and as much as not talking about income level or talking about your particular level of finance, I think it's appropriate to know uh, the social economic value. Somebody here that's working full time, they still don't have disposable income to be going out and eating in restaurants, or to be, you know, like we stop by and get coffee, we buy lunch out, we go to dinner out 2 or 3 times a week. That's kind of standard for our culture, but certainly they don't have the disposable income here in third world countries that you see.
Hmm.
So doing a coffee date with someone just so you can meet them and actually have time to talk to them and get to know them uh, is certainly appropriate. You can do a reasonable restaurant. You don't have to go all out to some big fancy place just to try to impress her.
Yep. In all honesty, a lot of the foreigners that I've met here will take them to Jollibee's or Chowking or what's that, Manga Ingasol,
Yeah.
which is like a chicken plate, and they're all. I mean, you could feed both of you guys for $10, $10 US, and they're happy to go to those places because they don't necessarily eat there all the time.
I'll preference with the difference of thinking about disposable income. For me, when I was 14, 15, 16, we used to run around, go to the shopping mall where you
Hmm.
can just cruise around and be out and be seen and doing things. Yeah, I can't afford to be shopping in all the stores and that kind of stuff, but that carries over into even the college years and early working years for people that get 3 days a month off, and they're still have to do their laundry, their household chores, those kind of things, catch up with family and that type of stuff. On 1 or 2 days off a month, they might just come to the mall and hang out. Maybe they get a juice or something and they're walking around the mall hanging out. It's the social economic ability that a lot of foreigners possess, that of course they see on Instagram or they see on Facebook or they see on their friends posting going to restaurants and doing these things.
Hmm.
That's somewhat attractive, you
Yeah.
know. Uh,
You,
Not much difference than you hear in the U.S. too. You hear a lot of the the girls that are in their mid-20s or so talking about, I'm tired of dating people my age that aren't mature, that aren't, that what they say isn't reliable, they're cheaters, those kind of things. That's not cultural, I think, as much as it's age specific. You get somebody who's in their 30s or 40s, they're naturally more mature, they're naturally more career oriented or settled, and those kind of attributes are attractive to somebody who's younger.
Yeah, I agree. And that kind of brings up the point, so this is actually my second recording, guys, of this, but I recorded it in a coffee shop. It was just way too loud. And I'm trying to remember everything that I talked about, but I wanted to bring Will in on this because I didn't want just my opinion like I had previously recorded. I wanted some of his opinion also. He's been here a lot longer than me. But as many of you that know me personally know that I'm quick to adapt. I understand a lot quicker than most people would. I'm a lot more culturally diverse because of the career choices that I've made, right? But one thing that I definitely want to say is when you start dating out here, you're going to notice that, like he said, that they're wanting more of a mature person. The younger generations are going to be the ones that come at you heavier. And some of that is because, when they start getting in their 30s, 40s, they already have their children, they've been married. And we're going to talk about being married out here and what that means and how you got to be careful as a foreigner coming out here dating someone that has been married, because it's big. I mean, it could be a really big thing. Some people it doesn't bother, and some people they're like, let me just stay away from that. I don't want to deal with that. So the younger generation are looking for stability and more socially mature and not even just socially mature, just mature, period. Gentlemen, it might not be a whole that they're 100% physically attracted to us more than they are mentally attracted to us, and stability wise, stability wise they're attracted to us, but and then some are just completely physically attracted to foreign men. So there's that too. You'll run into where they'll be completely honest with you, like, no, I think you're attractive, but I'm not normally attracted to foreigners. Or, and then when you ask them, oh, it's just because you're mature or you're stable or you treat me nice. Americans treat us nice, so on and so forth. But I want to dive into the marriage thing. I don't know if you had something to say.
Yeah, I was just kind of talking about some of the pitfalls. That would certainly be one of the obvious pitfalls. Is there is no divorce here in the Philippines. So if somebody wants to go and get their previous marriage annulled, it can literally take 4, 5, 6 years. And then there's issues if you're dating somebody who's married. There's issues with the, I mentioned the Catholic society is so involved into the government and trapped into here. There's issues with somebody being married while engaged in a relationship with someone else, and there can be consequences to your eligibility to return to the Philippines and or your visa status here in the Philippines, and in some scenarios, of course there's extreme on others.
Yeah, they can even get as serious as some jail time. Yeah. So you don't hear about it a whole lot. You'd really have to be doing something really bad, but some jail time. But there's definitely possibilities of jail time for her. You just got to be careful with that. I'm not trying to scare anybody away from dating some.
That's him or her, because I have recently seen some American women coming here to date.
Oh.
Yeah, some
okay.
Women
him
that
or
are
her
retiring her here and having, similar issues, similar difficulties finding men to date, reliability and those things.
I'm definitely not trying to scare anybody away from dating someone that was in a previous relationship with children or married. They just be conscientious, and if you are going to date someone that's married, brush up on the laws and how society takes it here. Me personally, I'm going to try to stay away from that as much as possible, but just be conscientious that there could be some problems.
Spend the time to investigate a little bit of the history of the person that you're getting involved with. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the other pitfalls I wanted to talk about on online dating is you have that first meeting, like, oh, I live in this part of town, she lives in this part of town. Again, for us to say, hey, jump in a taxi, it's only $5 to come over here. Well, if you're talking about $5 is their disposable income to eat for the next week, they've never actually met you. Are you actually who you say you are, where you say you are, those kind of things. And that can create a little bit of an argument. Hey, I've never met you. I don't want to give you money. But at the same point, you want them to be able to, meet you at a Starbucks or a coffee shop or meet you at a restaurant, and you're expecting them to invest their week or month's version of disposable income, and or they may not have enough money at that point
Yeah.
to get home if something goes wrong. One of the things we've started to see here is, I'll send a Grab to pick you up.
Yep.
And that way, you're not sending that person money per se, and then they're just blowing you off.
I've ran into this twice, actually. What I did is I said, hey, just order a Grab and make it cash, and I'll just meet you and your Grab driver and I'll pay him.
Yeah.
I did that. And then, on the way home, once I knew how much it cost for them to get there, I just say it was 200 Filipino pesos to meet me, I would give her 250 Filipino pesos to get home. That way, if there's any discrepancies in the trip, she had extra cash. Listen, 50 pesos isn't going to break the bank for us. I promise you. It's right around $1, 80 something cents. So it's not going to break the bank.
And it helps them to feel comfortable that they, can end the date and be able to get home safely at any time they need to. Understanding that is.
Yeah, they're going to expect you to pay for travel. I promise you that. They're going to expect you to pay for travel. They're going to expect you to pay for food. And you should want to if you're having them come to you.
Of course, after a few dates, if you want to go have a shopping experience and bring food home and cook at home, and she wants to cook a meal for you, those kind of things are super common. They're super happy to be, providing and caring and sweet, and they want to share their culture, their favorite dish with you, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Not uncommon that she wants you to come and cook for you after a couple dates and, that kind of thing.
What's crazy is he brings that up, but whenever Cam comes over to visit, she walks in the door, takes her sandals off, and because they always take their shoes off when they come in, and the first thing she does is grab the broom and start sweeping.
Mm-hmm.
She just starts sweeping, instantly
every day.
sweeps every time she comes over. The first time I'm like, hey, you don't have to do that. No, it's okay. She wants to contribute in some sort of way, and to show that she's going to be a part of that relationship. That's what they do. So don't be thrown off by that. One thing I wanted to bring up too, this is a big thing that you see online a lot and you hear other people talk about. I haven't experienced it yet because I haven't been in a serious enough relationship. Supporting the family of your girlfriend. This is something that's brought up to me all the time. I don't know if I want to get in a relationship out there because I don't want to pay for their family to live too, or I support their family to live too. So you have some insight on that I don't, and that's why I wanted to pick your brain on it.
I touched a second about being authentic when what you're posting on your dating profile. It's the discussion when you're getting to know someone, your first date or two, when you're dating or courting and getting to understand. There's so many different examples of people and situations that you kind of have to understand what it is that's important to you. I'll give you an example. For me, I have the disposable income that I can come here on vacation and be able to travel. So it's not uncommon when I'm here for 30 days that I'm going to spend 4 or 5 days and go to an island, be back in the city for a week, spend 4 or 5 days to go fly to another island, those kind of things. And it's not about the dollar amount for me, but if somebody has a job and works 5 or 6 days a week, they can't travel like that. So to me, it's worth offsetting their income that they would be making from a job in order to have the availability of time and companionship. Some people prefer to have somebody that's working where they get more individual time alone, where they have quiet time, they can go explore on their own and do some of those things. And that's going to vary from person to person and what you're looking for. And part of the discussion of a relationship and a long-term relationship. Like for me, being in my 50s, ending my career in the United States, I'm interested in moving this direction permanently into Cebu. So a lot of the women that I have previously talked to and or dated a couple times, their whole focus is they want a relationship so they can go to the U.S. and work and earn a U.S. wage. There's nothing wrong with them being ambitious, them wanting a career. It just means that it's not the right fit for me. And sometimes that comes up in discussions. Similar with kids, for me personally, I have 2 adult children. I'm not interested in starting over with a baby. To me, to think of like, oh, my baby would graduate high school around the time that I turn 70 is not attractive, and that's not a perfect match for somebody else. So it takes time to figure out what's relevant and important to you and relevant and important to another person to find that right match.
And bringing back up what I was talking about people, foreigners, thinking that when they date a woman, they have to support the woman's family also. So this brings up a point also that sometimes when you're in a city or a metropolitan area like Cebu or Manila, when you meet a woman here, she's from the province. They live in what's called boarding homes most of the time, right? They move into these boarding homes, so they can work in the city and not have to travel from the province to the city every single day. But they're actually the ones that are breadwinners that are making the money for their family back in the province, and they're living okay in the city, but majority of their income goes back to the province, to their mothers,
Sure,
fathers, brothers, sisters.
It's a little different, but maybe you can relate to this in the United States. People go into the downtown area where the wages are higher. They can't afford to live in that area, so they're commuting 45 minutes an hour, 2 hours away to where housing is affordable, so your salary goes farther. It's the same here. Not uncommon to see multi-generational family living where a couple of the kids go off to the cities and or to the service, to the Navy, even to go work abroad, and then be able to send a portion of their paychecks home to help support the kids, the brothers, the sisters, the parents, the grandparents, and again, every situation's different, and the level of involvement you want with somebody else's family is going to vary per individual. Again, do the research to understand what you're getting involved with. And
I just know I've heard from others, a couple hundred, 300 pesos, couple hundred pesos, 300 pesos a week helps the families out a bunch. And I don't necessarily know if I would be opposed to it as long as the relationship's serious enough. But I definitely wouldn't jump right into a relationship and, a couple weeks in start sending their parents, 300 pesos a week or 400 pesos a week to support themselves, because I just don't really know them, right? And that's our culture. But you also got to be cognizant too, if you're caring about someone, and the families over here are pretty thick. They're pretty tight, right? Tight knit families. And if it makes her happy that her family is taken care of, it's probably going to make you happier too. So just keep those things in mind. But those are some things that I wanted to talk about. Was the one, dating online, and be conscientious about what you say, what you do, asking the right questions. That way you're not talking to someone you're not going to be interested in. Or when you unbox the package, it's going to have the wrong tools. You know what I'm saying? Make sure you're asking the right questions so you don't waste 6 months of your life before you get out here and meet them, and then you're like, oh, what? It happens. I promise you, it happens.
One of the other examples that I talk about pretty often is the sentence structure in English.
Yeah.
Coming from the United States and California, it's very common that a lot of people learned the Latin language first and then learned English as their second language. So their use of vocabulary and sentence structure can be a little bit different, and certainly have seen over 10 years of being here multiple arguments between friends and families and between relationships and even my friends' relationships and stuff, just by using the wrong word and someone reacting to it and just not,
Mhm.
you know, I can say, hey, Chad, you're being silly today. And that just means he's being funny. But if you use that word silly here in the Philippines, that means like I'm literally calling you childish, like you're being a baby. And they're offended by that. And as soon as as you know, that argument starts going and now all of a sudden it's spun out of control and you were just trying to say, hey, you're being funny.
Yeah.
You're cool, you're joking around today. And it just gets out of control quickly. So take your
Makes sense.
time, be
Yeah.
patient, make sure you understand each other.
Yeah, don't get so, if they say something that when you read it might offend you, stop and ask before you get offended, because they might not be saying it that way. They might not be saying it the way that you think that they are. It's just the only way they know how to say it.
Slow down and clarify, especially
Yes.
when something's important. You're having a bigger discussion and something's relevant. Come back to it the next day. Hey, can you remind me what it is that we agreed to?
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Here's another thing. If you do get over here and you do start dating, this is kind of important too. Be prepared to tell them about it. Dinner's at 6 p.m., right? We know this. Be prepared to tell them 4:30, 5 o'clock, because they're definitely on their own time. They definitely take their time.
They joke about it in the Latin culture is very influential, similar here that, hey, we're eating at 6 means you need to be ready to leave your house by 6, but that means they're 45 minutes away and a ride here plus time and traffic, and all of a sudden it showed up. And
We just did this. We just dealt with this yesterday, right? Was it yesterday?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It was, I mean, it was fine. It worked out, but we did. So, and another thing I want you to understand too is they're always going to say, I'm shy. Initially, I'm shy. That basically means that they're just not comfortable yet, right? It's not that they're actually shy, because they're really not.
Interested in talking to you, but they don't trust their English communication. They're not experienced in just being able to have an intellectual conversation. And
So what that brings up is when they talk to you, it's very low. They're not, it's almost a whisper.
certainly true, if they're not confident what they're talking about, all of a sudden they want to get quiet and put
They cover their mouth.
and you're like, what did you say? And of course you're bringing it up like, be louder, and it's making them even more shy about what they're trying to say.
It brings up another one. As we're talking about it, I'm just recalling things that I deal with Cam.
Sure.
They point with their lips. This is something you're not. So in this culture, to point in a direction, if you point at someone, is extremely offensive to them. Like, how you're taught, hey, don't point. That's rude. Here, it's beyond rude for them. They do not like it.
Right.
They will say something to you if you're pointing. If they're not intimidated by you, they will say something. So where I'm getting at is and they'll say, when they say yeah, a lot of times, you know how we say well, they say like and they'll point with their lips. So, or they'll say yes with their eyebrows. They're like, I can't even do it. They pump their eyebrows up and down. You might not even be looking at them. You're like, hey, do you want some of this chicken? And you'll turn around.
What was that?
In our culture, when someone's like, it's like, no, we don't, right? Here, it means yes. Or they're going to react with a facial expression. You're not even looking at them. So you have to have some patience and be like, hey, my culture, we actually say it. Your culture, I know you don't, but I'm not acclimated to your culture. So can you please speak up, or can you please tell me? I do it 5 times a day, at least 5 times a day.
So here's a good dating tip for you. You're online looking at her Facebook. You see that she's got pictures at the beach, picture at the pool. She has several pictures in bathing suits and outfits. Don't assume that means she knows how to swim.
Wait a minute. Here's another thing that don't assume that she's innocent. When they're this is a very...
If you see they've flown to another island, to a white sand beach with palm trees and cabanas and a nice hotel, and have a flowery drink on under a cabana somewhere.
She wasn't alone.
So she didn't afford that.
She was not alone. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Maybe she was dating a foreigner in the past, but usually, I really don't even like saying this on here, but I have to because I want you guys, I want it to be in your mind.
Well,
usually what it means is they date foreigners as a profession, so they're dating them.
Nah, I wouldn't necessarily say that that's true.
Maybe not a profession, but they are dating more foreigners.
Certainly a good conversational discussion, or when you're getting to know someone, is have you ever dated a foreigner before? Why are you interested in talking to a foreigner rather than a Filipino? These kind of openings. I was touching on the swimming thing because I think it's a really good date thing. We have a really nice pool. Most of the condos have a pool area, and a lot of them are only 3 or 4 feet deep. So maybe your third date or fourth date, when you're progressing past the restaurant phase, hey, why don't you come over and learn how to go swimming? The pool's only 3 feet deep or 4 feet deep, so you don't have to worry about drowning. It kind of cultivates that relationship. You teach them how to swim a little bit or float on their back and those kind of things. Make sure you understand the rules in the condos about, what's required for people coming over. Most condos that are catering towards Westerners require no guests under the age of 18, no guests that don't have government issue photo ID. They're all required to be checked in with the guard. Some places, if you're doing short-term rentals, or even you check in when you leave, and when they go to leave, the guard will not give them back their ID unless you escort them to the desk and sign out for them to leave.
That's where I live, is like that.
Not uncommon.
Yeah, they hold their ID until they leave. We were talking. One thing I want to talk about too about online dating. You're going to run into it for sure, especially when you're in country. You're not going to run into it as much out of country as much as you are in country. Once you are here, you're going to start noticing that you're going to get messages that the women are saying that they're freelancers. So I want you to understand what that means. Freelancers are
for rent.
Yeah, we would call them. We would.
Well,
I don't really like to use the word prostitutes because they're not all prostitutes,
right.
But escorts for sure. They
not necessarily professional, but they're there for the income stream.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. You have to be realistic. If you're coming for a vacation for 3 days and you want to spend 2 days online to meeting someone, to going to coffee, to being in restaurants, your vacation's over. If you want to walk off the airport and have someone waiting for you at the airport with her bags packed to go off to the islands that intends on staying with you, be an adult. It is what it is.
It is, yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that as long as you're okay with it. Me, personally, I'm not into it, but...
And kind of what I say about that is, as long as both people are being honest about what the intentions are and the understanding, then it is what it is.
It is what it is. Anything else?
Who knows? We could talk about all kinds of things.
Man, we could talk about... I really want to do this segment just on dating. So
sure.
I get a lot of questions about what are the women like out here. I'm going to be honest. Most of the women that I've met are some of the sweetest, and they are very caring, and they want you to have a great time and a great experience with them, right? They're not very malicious that I have met. I have ran across. I'm sure that that's not 100% of all Filipinos out here, but so far what I've met, they've all been very, what's the word we use? They're not, a lot of them are very flingy. Like they want a relationship.
Yeah, they're certainly more interested in finding a single companion to be exclusive with. Certainly another discussion that you want to have is the difference between dating someone, getting to know someone. Once you become exclusive, once you're committed in a relationship, you almost need to step by step have these discussions where you are. Maybe something we could add is a few different instances of dating ideas. So one of the things that I like is I have a bunch of friends that come and visit me at different times, and I try not to individually say like, oh, I have this girl that I know that's my girlfriend's friend or something, and this guy come in and set him up. What I'll do is be like, hey, a group of us are going to go to karaoke, and there might be 6, 8, 10 people. Yeah. And, I encourage, like, if he's dating someone and she has a friend, a sister, a coworker that's single, invite her to come with us. Mm-hmm. And, hey, if they meet each other, if they're friends, if they develop a relationship, those kind of things, it creates that social opportunity to interact without the pressure of dating one-on-one.
Someone don't feel like a third wheel.
Yeah, not uncommon. We say the bar scene here, but it can be in a little different things. Of course, they have huge discos here that, don't even kick off till 11, 12 p.m. The music's so loud you can't even scream at each other over the corner. Not really for meeting someone, not appropriate for a first date type situation.
Right.
But they do have some outdoor food restaurants that have like an acoustic person playing some music.
Yeah, I
and
did
those
a
kind of
video on
things.
Cebu Mercado.
Yeah.
So if you've watched any of my channel, you guys can see that. It's like a food market with like 20 or 30 vendors in there.
And I would say, within 15, 20 minutes of where I live here in Cebu, there's probably 20, 30 different food courts like that of different areas.
That's one thing I talked about in my solo when I was telling you guys I had to redo this. Karaoke. It's big. I mean, out here it's big. Like literally, once the girls get a couple drinks in them, they're like, "Let's go karaoke." And
it's not uncommon when I'm not here in the Philippines and I do a video call to the girl that I've been dating for several years. At 7 a.m. in the morning, they're literally at their province house singing karaoke as the kids are getting up, getting ready for school. I mean, it's just part of the culture for sure. Even if you're not the greatest singer, even if you would say you're a bad singer, just the fact that you're willing to participate with them. I made the joke the other day, one of my go-to songs when I got, 6, 8, 10 people together and there's 3 or 4 guys, 3 or 4 girls, whatever, I'll throw on Margaritaville and it ends up being a group song and it's really not even as noticeable that I'm not a good singer because it just becomes part of the group party thing, and if you can sing,
you're in there.
You're in.
You're in there
for sure.
Another thing too, guys, that you're going to run into a lot of locals. I talk about it almost every time I do one. If you take them out after you get done going out or whatever, and there's someone selling balut, they're just stop and get them some balut because they want it.
Yeah.
Most of them want it. There's some that don't, but most of them, they're gonna want this balut. It's the duck and the egg. I'm gonna beat up Duluth too much, but a lot of them. I mean, literally, we every time we go to the social and we leave, his
There's
girl.
literally 2 or 3 clubs right there, and as they come out, probably between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. they got to sell 100 of these little duck eggs. The girls are sitting there pouring vinegar and soy and chewing them up, and it's a whole another cultural experience.
There's a line of people waiting to get balut. Okay, so just to give you guys the picture, right? There's 2 people sitting, and they've got these milk crates, and then they have like a smaller milk crate, and it's full of cigarettes, right? And they're individually selling cigarettes, which here they can do, and like in the United States, they're selling cigarettes individually, right? And
they got bubble gum,
buy a piece and they're hustling. They're like, "Hey, you want a
sure.
cigarette? Hey, you want gum? Hey," and you have a person walk up to them every now and then buy a single cigarette, but the guy next to them that's selling the balut. There's a line of 3 or 4 people constantly at this balut. You would think they were to look over and see this guy selling balut and say, "Why don't we sell balut?" But anyway,
yeah.
I don't really have a whole lot more. I know what's gonna happen is I'm gonna shut this camera off and I'm gonna say, "Why didn't I talk about that?"
Yeah.
There's a lot. I just kind of want to give you guys a skinny. Just make sure that you're being very thorough.
It takes time to investigate and really think about what's important for me, what I want in a relationship, and be able to communicate and articulate that to somebody else, to be patient and take the time to understand their culture, their understanding and the meanings of those words. And
I want you to understand too that when you come out here, it's not like fishing in a barrel like a lot of people say it is, because they already don't trust us from the jump, because so many other foreigners come out here and they just want to put notches on their belts and they're running around, they're dating 2, 3 girls a day, some of them, right? Or going on dates 2 or 3 girls a day, or they're out running around grabbing a girl, and I'm telling you, they pay attention. Like, especially if you're in IT Park and you go on it, because it happened to me. I've been on 2 dates before I met Cam. And that was the first thing she said to me. Why would I date you when you already go on dates with a bunch of girls? Like, what? I've only dated 2. I see you walking with girls, you know. So they all know. But Cebu is big, but it's not
Not that
quiet.
big, and
It's
they all have
not quiet at all.
big families and aunts and uncles and
Yep.
cousins and brothers and sisters and coworkers. And, it's not uncommon, even 10, 15 minutes away from where I live at a different shopping mall, I'll be walking by and somebody will message my girlfriend, hey, I saw Will over here. Talking to somebody or,
I mean, that ain't
different things. And
that ain't uncommon in the U.S. either, right?
yeah,
So, but anyway, I just want you to understand it. Don't, if your intention is to come out here and get notches under your belt, whatever, right? But if you're out here to try to find a real relationship, just be cognizant. Don't take 4 or 5 girls to the same location. Spread it out throughout the city, because you're going to give yourself a reputation within the first 4 or 5 days of being a player, and it's going to hurt your chances.
and just work on being able to clearly communicate what your expectations and goals are.
Mm-hmm. I think that's about it. I don't really have much more. We've been on chit-chatting for a minute.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. As always, if you got questions that you want answered or specifics, you can throw them in the comments. If you got a topic or something you want to understand a little more about, certainly glad to share whatever experience we have.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thank you.